Hi, my name is Richard Balducci and I'm a senior leader in IT security for a large global financial services company. I've been doing IT for over 32 years and I've been doing IT security for the last 21 years. There have been many high-profile cyber attacks and breaches in the news in the past couple of years that have not only affected the valued customers, but also the organizations, stock prices, revenues, and potentially the jobs of senior leadership. It is imperative to deploy an effective vulnerability and patch management program in your organization to reduce the risk and threat landscape. We call this basic security hygiene. Let's first take a look at the cyber attacks and breaches that have hit the news. Everybody's heard Equifax in the news earlier this year. According to Identity Force, a blog on the worst breaches in 2017, Equifax, one of the three large credit agencies in the U.S., suffered a breach that may affect 143 million consumers. Due to the sensitivity of the data stolen, including Social Security numbers and driver's license numbers, this is being called one of the worst breaches ever. Hackers were able to gain access to the company's system from mid-May to July, exploiting a weak point in the website software. The breach was discovered by Equifax at the end of July. They did seek outside assistance from a forensic firm. Other compromised data is said to include full names, addresses, dates of birth, credit card numbers, and other personal information. Their stock price took a 34% hit. The breach is estimated to cost over $125 million. And the CEO and Chief Information Security Officer were forced out of their jobs. You may have also heard of some ransomware attacks earlier this year called WannaCry and Petya. According to Healthcare IT News, a global pharmaceutical giant, Merck, had to drastically reduce their third quarter earnings due to the cyber attacks. Part of their production was shut down for days. The attack is estimated to cost the company around $135 million. In a Bloomberg article in September, it was reported that FedEx had to cut their profit forecast by $300 million because they were hit hard from the cyber attack. Fortune magazine reported Mondelez International, the world's second largest confectionery company, reported a 5% drop in quarterly sales, blaming the shipping and invoicing delays caused by the June attack of the worm known as Petya. Fortune magazine also reported in an August article that Science, a firm that helps insurers measure cyber risk, estimated the economic costs from Petya would total over $850 million. So how do you protect yourself from these cyber attacks and breaches? Well, by implementing an effective vulnerability and patch management program. Organizations must establish a consistent program to routinely patch your environment. The rate depends on the criticality and the risk appetite of your organization. Additionally, you must scan for the vulnerabilities and security weaknesses and patches routinely. There are many industry examples of an effective patch management program. I tend to lean towards SANS as one of my sources, but they're all very similar. At the SANS.org website, they produced a paper back in February 2007 that shows an effective life cycle patch management. In this graphic, you'll see it is a cyclical process that never ends. You audit or scan your IT ecosystem for vulnerabilities. You get the patch from the vendor or maybe your application developers. You test the patch, deploy the patch, and then you scan again to identify the effectiveness of your patch deployment and to find new vulnerabilities. As you can see, this model has existed for quite some time. So why is it so difficult to achieve? Well, I can explain in many ways. First off, if you go to Wikipedia and look up the definition of a deterministic system. In mathematics and physics, a deterministic system is a system in which there is no randomness involved in the development of future states of the system. A deterministic model will thus always produce the same output from a given starting condition or initial state. IT infrastructure is very complex and has many variables. We can make an analogy that this IT ecosystem is almost like a living organism. Some could even argue it might be even more complex. In September of 2017, I attended a Chief Information Security Officer conference sponsored by Argyle. One of the presentations given was by Andy Ulrich, Head of Security for Ericsson. The title of his presentation was Alien Covenant, The Infrastructure Lives. In order to be successful in maintaining a healthy ecosystem, like in any living organism, he refers to performing things like health diagnostics. Health diagnostics must be performed in order to keep the ecosystem healthy. Clinical trials. In the IT ecosystem, that comes in the form of development and test environments, pilot groups, phased rollouts, backups, and failovers. As you can see, it's difficult to maintain such a complex ecosystem. I look forward to reading the Verizon Data Breach Investigations report every year. In this year's report, you can infer that there are residual systems that are not well managed. They might be left off the inventory management system, they might be managed by shadow IT, or they didn't get effectively patched. Scanning to find and remediate these is very important to ultimately protect your infrastructure. I'm going to refer you to this graphic from the Verizon Data Breach Investigations report. Here in this graphic, taken from 2017 DBIR, this shows a 12-week window of vulnerabilities that remain unpatched and exposed in your organization to cyber attacks or breaches. We can see that the education sector is the worst. After 12 weeks, about 80% of their IT ecosystem is still vulnerable. The finance and public sectors aren't very much better. Healthcare, manufacturing, and IT companies are doing a lot better, but as you can see, there's still room to be better. But their threat profile is much lower, making them a much less likely target. As you can see, it's very important to have an effective vulnerability and patching program in your organization. This will reduce the threat landscape and reduce the risks to your organization from cyber attacks and breaches. These breaches are costly to your customers, your reputation, your stock price, and possibly your job. If you're successful in maintaining it properly, it might be your competitor that ends up in the news instead of your company. That's a competitive advantage.